Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of this weird podcast, Daughters and Dragons. I'm Rafael, resident dungeon master and self-professed game designer. Yeah, a do-it-yourself game designer. And this time, today, we're gonna continue basically picking up points and pointers from the first blog post that I had written on Medium, which is the same one I referenced in the previous episode, without counting the Italian video. And basically, we're gonna dive finally into the mechanics of the game, because I've been rambling about abstract stuff too much, and the joke was on me, because I was also saying that everything should be grounded in reality to be more accessible, and then I made very inaccessible videos by making them so abstract and like theoretical and so on. So let's dive into the practical stuff. What the game starts with, let's say, is always character creation, right? It's a big part. I think basically it's always been my favorite part of these types of games, yeah, because as I previously said, it kind of translates reality into another language, nearly code, yeah, that gives more meaning and more shape to something completely imaginary. I do it even when I write fiction, fantasy fiction. I always give some values, some scores to characters, at least in my head. And character creation is very important in this game, and I will talk today just about the basic ability scores, yeah, which I'm basically almost stealing from Dungeons and Dragons. It's one of the few things that I wanted to keep more or less the same, not because not because I think it works, and in fact I did change a couple of things, but just because I wanted to start from somewhere, and I wanted some kind of constraints. Yeah, might change in the future, but the current version has 6 ability scores, like Dungeons and Dragons. So for now, they use different words just to have different initials on them. Many times, sometimes also because the meaning is different. But for example, strength, I said, yeah, I will probably end up calling it strength, but for now I called it force instead of strength, which is probably terrible. But according to the emoji based language, it's of course the arm, like this, the strong arm. Nothing to explain here. But it's actually the most, I would say, I call them bodily or somatic abilities. Yeah, something like that, either bodily or somatic. The most physical ones. I didn't want to call them physical, I don't know why. Yeah, so these are the because I use physical later on. So these are the somatic, the most bodily, ability scores, because ability scores will be paired 2 by 2. Yeah, there are 3 pairs. So the first pair is strength or force, plus instead of constitution, I went for vitality or vitality. I never know how exactly is it pronounced in English. And this one is slightly changed from constitution, but not really. I just think that it's a word that describes better what constitution always was, which is, not exactly a measure of how big you are, but how resistant, resilient, and in general, how much of a survivor you are. like if we want to go a bit beyond, like to the beyond the most immediate meaning. So these are the physical or somatic or bodily stats, ability scores. And let me introduce also another element of the game. They are determining another, let's say, derived statistic, which is stamina. So basically, your resistance to fatigue, and basically not only anything physical, anything anything that doesn't really exactly injure you, but brings you down. Tiredness, a lot of things. Let me just put it there. The icon, by the way, for vitality is a drop of blood. I will call it vitality. It's a drop of blood, which is probably not so good for for a game aimed at kids, but I really didn't find anything better, because I really want to emphasize the fact that it's an internal characteristic. Because another way in which the ability scores are also divided, they are really a table. So this is the first row, and it's divided between external and internal. So external is strength or force, internal is vitality. So it's really your inner, you could even say your inner strength or your inner resistance more than anything. But life force is also something that went into my mind, because you will see why later. Okay, so these two together, using a very simple formula, which is also expressed by emojis, and right now I don't even remember it quite well, but basically there is this convention that I'm using where the emoji for the letter A refers to the biggest score among two, and the letter B refers to the smallest score among two. So basically, since stamina is in the middle of these two, if it's calculated as A plus B, that's a shortcut to say the size of the die of A plus the size of the die of B. So if you have two regular 6-sided dice, it's 6 plus 6, 12 stamina. I'm not really sure that's the formula of stamina. No, it's not. That's for another thing. The formula of stamina, I don't really remember it right now, but I think it's limited by the smallest score, because basically I was thinking it in these terms. As I said, I want to have everything have a clear meaning. So if you're getting tired of something, you will get tired first because of your weakness, right? Not because of your strength. Like, your strength is not what gets you tired, it's your weakness. So basically, if you either lack muscles or you lack vitality, life force, whatever it is, that's what limits your stamina. So you're starting to get maybe my whole way of seeing the system, which is very practical, I would say. So second row of this table, mental abilities, and I call them mental, even if the first one, since it's the closest, because you can see it a bit as a snake, the closest one to the physical ones is dexterity, which I still consider mental, because it's basically the part of your brain that controls your body, right? How precise, quick are your movements. And the emoji is an open hand like this. There could have been many others, but I thought it was very iconic, and it makes you think that it's mostly about what you do with your hands, but not only, right? It's very generic, basically. And the other mental ability, of course, is the equivalent of intelligence. I didn't call it intelligence because I thought it was a bit loaded. People don't really understand exactly what intelligence entails. So for now I'm calling it just mind, To be honest, it could have even just been called brain, but that would have been also a bit all-encompassing. The icon is a brain, the emoji of the brain, and together they determine an energy resource. Yeah, I'm starting to call them with the names I thought, a resource called focus. Now, focus is not a very limited resource, in the sense that I see it basically as your level of focus. Exactly, I call things how they are. That's a mission of this game, and it's actually calculated as half of the highest value of the two. Why? Because you're not supposed to have a lot of it, because you can recharge it by just concentrating. You could think of this a bit as the substitute of concentration in Dungeons and Dragons, right? But in Dungeons and Dragons, it's something that you have by default, and then something can break. Here instead, you actually spend concentration, and you might not be able at some point to concentrate any further if you don't take a small break and refocus. I think this is great because it will provide a certain pace and a certain action economy to the game, almost a game within the game, and I will return to this a lot in the future. Finally, of course, here we have the mind as the internal score and the dexterity as the external one, the basically how your mind interacts with the world. So hand, brain and hand. Then third row, I'm calling these the primal abilities, even if they could be called in other ways as well, but bear with me. The internal, let's start with the internal primal ability is senses. It's a plural, yeah. Sensitivity was too long and too loaded, so it's just senses, and the emoji is the eye, your attention. Yeah, how do you process information from outside? So you could call it also a very primitive side of the brain, yeah, the basics really. And it controls, of course, a lot of things, while the external, all the things related to the senses and attention level. And the external one is charisma. This one, I didn't change the name of it, although it will never be used alone. And I think I said this already, but I will repeat. All of these ability scores are meant to be used coupled with another one, and thus acquiring a very different meaning every time. So charisma is using the emoji of the heart with the little stars around, because it also wants to convey that there's some magic here. You know, it's the way your spirit and your soul almost reflect on the outside, and also can manipulate a bit, change the emotions of people around you. It's very important. Together, these statistics, these ability scores, they determine the spirit resource, which is a limited resource. It's not something that recharges, if not by sleeping a good night's sleep, kids, a good night's sleep, not just any, you know, nap. And it's basically the magical statistic, yeah, the magical resource. You could call it mana, you know, in a video game it would be called mana, and it recharges daily. And in fact, it's more abundant because it has to last the whole day. So that's where you sum the high and low value. So both, it's just a sum of the size of the die that you have in senses plus the size of the die that you have in charisma. So imagine, yeah, wizards, be careful, because your magical resource is based on 2 ability scores that you normally don't care about. Oops, oops, oops. Oh yeah. The so-called multiple ability score dependency, or how is it called? It was abbreviated MAD, dependency. Abbreviated MAD is big in my game, and that's by design. Yes, you need a lot of different abilities. The video is already 15 minutes long, so today I will not get into how these abilities are exactly coupled with each other. I will just ask for your comments. You know, what do you think about this subdivision, internal, external, 3 categories, 3 shared pools of resources? It seems like a lot, but yeah, let me tell you one last bonus thing. Why do I think this is gonna work for kids? Well, because these resources, which is basically, you know, numbers instead of dice, that's where the numbers figure in my game, are actually quite small numbers. Yeah, they don't get very high, and they can be represented in the game at the table with coins or tokens of different kinds and different colors. So for example, my let's say current idea is that the physical bodily scores, abilities, are basically greenish in color, and the stamina has the icon of the droplets of sweat, because that's what it is, sweat. And focus is more pinkish, together with dexterity and mind. Yeah, they are the pinkish mental abilities. So color coding, very important. And you will have just a couple of tokens there, 2 or 3, 4 at the max. And last but not least, the spirit and related abilities, which could be called spiritual, but I decided to call primal, are bluish. Yeah, so, you know, kind of to give the impression that they are high abilities. And yeah, so basically here with spirit, it might be a lot of coins. So if I would have to create these tokens or coins, I would create them of different sizes. Focus would be big, and by the way, the emoji of focus is the bullseye with the arrow hitting. So, you know, it tells you what it's used for, not only mental things, but also, for example, shooting with a bow. And the final one, the spirit, I didn't say it, the emoji is the 3 stars, you know, sparkles, how you want to call them, like to give this impression of something a bit celestial, a bit magical. Yeah, and they would have to be very small stars, really, the tokens. Sorry for that, there are holes like crazy in this road after the rain. And yeah, they are many, and they have to be spent, you know, in quantity. So that's how it is. Of course, you can look at the actual visual representation of all of this following the link below. Sorry, it's not a real link. YouTube doesn't trust me yet. Just copy and paste it. Have fun, roll dice, and tell me what you think. Bye bye.